Ethan Carter was a man who had faced more challenges than most people could imagine, yet he carried himself with quiet strength. At just 32 years old, life had thrown him curveballs that would have knocked many others off their feet. 2 years ago, his world came crashing down when his wife, Sarah, died in a tragic car accident. She had been the light of his life, his partner, and the mother of their 6-year-old son, Liam. Her loss left an emptiness in Ethan's heart that nothing seemed to fill. But despite the grief weighing heavily on his shoulders, Ethan refused to give up. He had Liam to think about, a bright, curious little boy who needed his dad now more than ever. Liam was everything to Ethan. The boy's laughter was like sunshine breaking through storm clouds, even on the darkest days. Still, raising a child alone wasn't easy, especially without much financial support. Ethan's savings were dwindling fast and bills piled up faster than he could pay them. He didn't have family nearby to lean on, and asking for help wasn't something he liked doing. Instead, Ethan rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Whatever job he could find, he took it. His priority was simple: keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. So when a cleaning company offered him a position as a janitor at Sterling Tech, one of the city's biggest tech companies, Ethan accepted without hesitation. Sterling Tech was a towering glass building located in the heart of downtown. During the day, it buzzed with activity, executives rushing to meetings, programmers typing furiously on keyboards, and interns scurrying around with coffee cups balanced precariously in their hands. But by night, the place transformed into a quiet, almost eerie space. That's when Ethan's shift began. Armed with a mop, a bucket, and a determination to provide for his son, Ethan worked tirelessly every evening. He cleaned offices, emptied trash bins, polished floors, and made sure everything sparkled before the morning crowd arrived. While Ethan worked late into the night, Liam stayed safe at home under the watchful eye of Mrs. Klein, their kind elderly neighbor. She adored Liam and often said how lucky Ethan was to have such a wonderful boy. Ethan agreed wholeheartedly but couldn't shake the guilt of not being there for his son during those hours. Yet, seeing Liam's smiling face in the mornings reassured him that he was doing the right thing. Every penny earned was worth it if it meant giving Liam a stable life. Upstairs, far removed from the hum of vacuum cleaners and the swish of mops, sat Alexander Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Tech. Alex was a man whose name commanded respect, and sometimes fear, throughout the business world. At 40, he was already considered a self-made success story. He had built Sterling Tech from scratch, turning it into a multi-million-dollar empire known for its cutting-edge technology. But behind the accolades and impressive numbers lay a man burdened by loneliness. Alex's life revolved around work, meetings, deadlines, mergers, acquisitions. It was all-consuming. People rarely saw him outside the office, and when they did, he was usually glued to his phone or buried in paperwork. His employees viewed him as cold and distant, a perfectionist who demanded excellence from everyone around him. Few dared to approach him directly, let alone ask personal questions. To them, Alex was untouchable, a figurehead rather than a person. But what no one knew was that beneath his polished exterior, Alex felt hollow. Wealth and power couldn't erase the ache of solitude or the memories of relationships that had crumbled under the weight of his ambition. For years, he'd convinced himself that focusing solely on his career was enough. Love, companionship, those were luxuries he couldn't afford. Or so he thought. One fateful evening, as Alex prepared to leave the office after another marathon session reviewing financial reports, he noticed something unusual. As he stepped out of his corner office, he saw a figure moving silently down the hallway. It was the janitor mopping the floor near his door. Normally, Alex wouldn't have given it a second thought. Janitors came and went. They were part of the invisible machinery that kept the company running smoothly. But tonight, something about this particular janitor caught his attention. The man moved with purpose, his movements deliberate yet unhurried. There was a calmness about him, a sense of focus that intrigued Alex. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to speak up. "Do you always work this late?" he asked, his voice sharp and abrupt. The janitor turned, startled by the sudden question. When he realized who had spoken, his eyes widened briefly before he composed himself. Yes, Mr. Sterling. I try to finish everything before morning so the office is ready for everyone." Alex studied him closely, noting the slight weariness in his expression but also the underlying determination. "You seem dedicated," he remarked, surprising himself with the compliment. "It's just my job," the janitor replied modestly, though his cheeks flushed slightly under Alex's gaze. That brief exchange lingered in Alex's mind long after he left the building. He didn't know why, but something about the janitor stuck with him. Maybe it was the way he carried himself with quiet dignity despite the nature of his work. Or maybe it was the faint smile that played on his lips even as he performed a task most people would consider menial. Whatever it was, Alex found himself looking forward to seeing the janitor again. Over the next few weeks, Alex made it a point to stay later than usual, using the excuse of unfinished work to justify his presence. Each time he found himself drawn to the janitor, engaging in short conversations about mundane topics like weather forecasts or sports scores. Slowly but surely, these interactions became a nightly ritual. For Alex, they provided a rare moment of genuine connection in an otherwise isolated existence, and for the janitor, whose name Alex eventually learned was Ethan, they offered a glimpse into a world vastly different from his own. Neither man realized it then, but these seemingly insignificant exchanges marked the beginning of something extraordinary. Amidst the sterile hallways of Sterling Tech, two lives were about to intersect in ways neither could have predicted. As the days turned into weeks, Alex found himself looking forward to those late-night encounters with Ethan, more than he cared to admit. At first, it was just curiosity that drove him to linger in the office longer than necessary. But soon those brief conversations became something he eagerly anticipated. There was something refreshingly real about Ethan, something Alex hadn't experienced in years. The janitor didn't fawn over him or tiptoe around his authority like everyone else at Sterling Tech. Instead, Ethan spoke plainly, answered honestly, and treated Alex as if he were just another person instead of a billionaire CEO. Each night, Alex would find an excuse to leave his office after hours, sometimes under the pretense of fetching documents or reviewing files. In reality, he was hoping to catch Ethan in the hallway or near his workspace. Their talks started off casually, about the weather, sports teams, or even mundane things like which brand of coffee tasted better in the break room. But over time, Alex began asking more personal questions, wanting to learn about the man behind the mop. "Do you have family nearby?" Alex asked one evening as Ethan polished the glass doors leading to the executive wing. Ethan paused for a moment, his expression softening. "Just my son," he replied. "He's 6. His name's Liam." Alex nodded, intrigued. "That must keep you busy." A small smile tugged at Ethan's lips. "Yeah, he does. Keeps me on my toes, but I wouldn't trade it for anything." It was clear from the way Ethan talked about Liam that the boy meant everything to him. His voice softened whenever he mentioned his son, and his eyes lit up with pride. This wasn't lost on Alex, who couldn't help but admire the depth of Ethan's devotion. It was a kind of love Alex had never truly known, a selfless, unconditional bond that transcended all else. Over time, Ethan grew more comfortable sharing bits and pieces of his life with Alex. He talked about how Liam loved dinosaurs and drawing pictures, how he often helped Ethan clean up at home because he thought it was fun, and how bedtime stories usually ended with both of them falling asleep before finishing the book. Alex listened intently, hanging on to every word. These snippets of Ethan's world fascinated him, offering a glimpse into a life so different from his own. For Ethan, these conversations felt surreal. He knew exactly who Alex Sterling was, the powerful CEO whose face appeared in magazines and news articles. Yet here he was, standing in the dimly lit hallway of Sterling Tech, chatting with Ethan like they were old friends. At first, Ethan worried that Alex might be humoring him or simply bored out of his mind. But as the nights went on, he realized there was sincerity in Alex's questions and genuine interest in his answers. One evening, as Ethan cleaned the boardroom table, Alex walked in carrying a stack of papers. "Mind if I sit for a minute?" he asked, gesturing toward one of the chairs. Ethan hesitated briefly before nodding. "Sure, go ahead." Alex sat down, placing the papers aside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Alex broke the silence. "You know, I don't think I've ever asked. What made you decide to take this job?" Ethan chuckled softly, leaning against his mop. "Well, it wasn't exactly my dream career, if that's what you're wondering. But when you're trying to raise a kid on your own, you take whatever work you can get. This job pays okay, and the hours are flexible enough for me to be there for Liam during the day." Alex tilted his head, his brow furrowing slightly. "Is it just you two? No grandparents or other family nearby?" Ethan shook his head. "Nope. My parents passed away years ago, and Liam's mom—" He trailed off, his voice catching for a split second. "She died in an accident a couple of years back, so it's just us now." The weight of Ethan's words hung in the air. Alex felt a pang of sympathy, but quickly masked it with his usual composed demeanor. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said quietly. "It must be tough." "It is," Ethan admitted. "But we manage. Liam's a good kid. He makes it easier." Alex nodded slowly, processing what Ethan had shared. He wanted to ask more, to understand how someone could endure such loss and still carry on with such grace. But he sensed that pushing too hard might make Ethan uncomfortable. Instead, he changed the subject, steering the conversation toward lighter topics. Despite their growing rapport, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was living in two separate worlds. By day, he was a single dad juggling parenthood and financial struggles. By night, he was a janitor exchanging stories with one of the most influential men in the city. Sometimes he wondered if Alex saw him as some sort of charity case, or worse, a distraction from the pressures of running a massive corporation. But whenever those doubts crept in, Alex's actions proved otherwise. On particularly cold nights, Alex would bring Ethan a cup of coffee from the executive lounge. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to Ethan. No one had ever gone out of their way to show kindness like that before, not since Sarah. And though Ethan tried not to read too much into it, he couldn't deny that Alex's thoughtfulness touched him deeply. Their nightly interactions weren't limited to conversations either. One evening, as Ethan vacuumed the carpet outside Alex's office, he noticed the CEO pacing back and forth, clearly agitated. Curious, Ethan approached cautiously. "Everything okay, Mr. Sterling?" Alex stopped mid-stride, rubbing his temples. "Just dealing with some stress. Nothing new." Without thinking, Ethan offered a suggestion. "Sometimes stepping away helps. Maybe take a quick walk around the building, clear your head." To Ethan's surprise, Alex actually considered it. "You know what? You're right. Thanks." With that, he grabbed his coat and headed toward the elevators, leaving Ethan standing there stunned that his advice had been taken seriously. As the weeks went by, their connection deepened. They began sharing laughter over silly jokes, discussing books they'd read, and even debating the merits of classic rock versus modern pop music. These moments brought a sense of normalcy to Ethan's otherwise chaotic life. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a struggling single father or a lowly janitor, but as a person with thoughts, feelings, and dreams. Meanwhile, Alex found himself looking forward to these evenings more than any meeting or business deal. Ethan's presence grounded him, reminding him of the simplicity and authenticity he'd been missing in his high-powered world. For the first time in years, Alex felt alive, not because of achievements or accolades, but because of human connection. Of course, not everyone viewed their budding friendship favorably. Whispers began circulating among the staff about the CEO spending so much time with the janitor. Some speculated that Ethan was using Alex for money or favors, while others dismissed the whole thing as bizarre. Neither Ethan nor Alex paid much attention to the gossip, at least not at first. They were too focused on the rare joy their interactions brought. But as fate would have it, their relationship was about to take an unexpected turn, one that neither of them could have anticipated. Little did they know, The seeds of something extraordinary had already been planted. All it needed was the right moment to bloom. As the weeks turned into months, Alex and Ethan's nightly conversations became something neither of them could imagine living without. What had started as casual small talk had evolved into meaningful exchanges that left both men feeling a little less alone in the world. For Alex, Ethan's presence brought warmth to the cold, sterile hallways of Sterling Tech. For Ethan, Alex's kindness offered a glimpse of hope in an otherwise difficult life. Yet despite their growing closeness, neither man dared to acknowledge the deeper feelings stirring beneath the surface. One snowy December evening, everything changed. The city was blanketed in white, and the streets glistened under the glow of streetlights. Ethan had just begun his shift when he received a call from Mrs. Klein, the elderly neighbor who usually watched Liam. Her voice trembled as she explained that she wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be able to care for Liam that night. Panic gripped Ethan. He couldn't leave Liam home alone, but he also couldn't afford to miss work, not with rent due at the end of the week. With no other options, Ethan bundled Liam up in his warmest coat and scarf and brought him along to Sterling Tech. As they entered the building, Liam clung to his father's hand, his wide eyes taking in the towering glass walls and polished floors. Ethan felt a pang of guilt for bringing his son to work, but he reminded himself that it was only for one night. Surely no one would mind. Unbeknownst to Ethan, Alex was still in his office, buried under a mountain of paperwork related to a major merger deal. When he heard the faint sound of laughter echoing through the hallway, he stepped out to investigate. To his surprise, he found Ethan kneeling beside Liam near the reception desk, helping the boy build a snowman out of crumpled paper cups. "What's going on here?" Alex asked, his tone light but curious. Ethan stood quickly, looking slightly embarrassed. "Oh, Mrs. Klein got sick, so I had to bring Liam with me tonight. I didn't want to leave him home alone." Alex glanced down at Liam, who stared back at him with a mix of awe and shyness. "This is Liam?" he asked, his voice softening. Ethan nodded. "Yeah. Liam, this is Mr. Sterling. He's, my boss." Liam extended a tiny hand, mimicking what he'd seen adults do in movies. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Sterling," he said politely. Alex chuckled, shaking the boy's hand gently. "The pleasure's all mine, Liam." Then, glancing at Ethan, he added, "It's freezing outside. You two shouldn't be out here. Come into my office where it's warm." Ethan hesitated, unsure if accepting such an offer was appropriate. But before he could protest, Liam tugged on his sleeve. "Can we go, Daddy? Please?" Seeing the hopeful look in his son's eyes, Ethan relented. "Okay, buddy. Thanks, Mr. Sterling." Inside Alex's spacious office, the atmosphere shifted instantly. The room was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of fresh coffee and leather furniture. Alex cleared off a corner of his desk and set out snacks he kept stocked for late nights: granola bars, fruit cups, and chocolate chip cookies. Liam's face lit up as he reached for a cookie, while Ethan looked on, grateful but slightly uneasy. "Make yourselves comfortable," Alex said, gesturing toward the couch. "I'll grab some hot chocolate from the lounge." While Alex was gone, Ethan tried to keep Liam entertained by letting him explore the office. The boy marveled at the sleek gadgets on Alex's desk and the massive bookshelf lined with titles Ethan had never heard of. When Alex returned with steaming mugs of hot chocolate, complete with marshmallows, Liam declared it the best drink ever and insisted on sharing his with his dad. Watching the scene unfold, Alex felt a strange warmth in his chest. He hadn't realized how much he missed moments like these. Simple, joyful interactions that reminded him what it meant to be human. As the evening wore on, the three of them played board games Alex had stashed away for stress relief, laughed at silly jokes, and even attempted to build a fort out of blankets and chairs. By the time Ethan finally tucked a sleepy Liam onto the couch, wrapped in one of Alex's cashmere throws, Alex knew he'd never forget this night. For Ethan, the experience was bittersweet. On one hand, he was grateful for Alex's generosity and the way he treated Liam with such genuine affection. On the other hand, he couldn't ignore the stark contrast between their lives. Here he was, a janitor struggling to make ends meet, sitting in the opulent office of a billionaire CEO. It was hard not to feel out of place, but Alex seemed determined to bridge that gap. Over the next few days, he made a point to check in with Ethan more frequently, asking how Liam was doing and whether there was anything he could do to help. At first, Ethan brushed off the offers, unwilling to impose, but Alex persisted, eventually convincing Ethan to let him arrange tutoring sessions for Liam through Sterling Tech's educational outreach program. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to Ethan, who saw it as another example of Alex's thoughtfulness. As their bond deepened, both men began to confront emotions they hadn't anticipated. For Alex, spending time with Ethan and Liam awakened something inside him, a longing for connection and family that he'd suppressed for years. He admired Ethan's resilience and dedication, qualities he wished he possessed himself. And though he tried to rationalize his feelings as mere admiration, he couldn't deny the flutter in his chest whenever Ethan smiled at him or thanked him sincerely. For Ethan, the situation was equally confusing. He admired Alex's intelligence, ambition, and unexpected kindness, but he couldn't shake the nagging fear that someone like Alex could never truly understand or accept his world. Still, the more time they spent together, the harder it became to resist the pull he felt toward the CEO. Their relationship reached a turning point one chilly January evening. Ethan had finished cleaning the executive wing and was packing up his supplies when Alex approached him. "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" he asked, his tone unusually hesitant. "Sure," Ethan replied, setting down his mop. "What's up?" Alex took a deep breath as if steeling himself for what he was about to say. "I know this might sound strange coming from me, but I really enjoy our conversations. More than I expected to, honestly. And I was wondering..." He paused, searching Ethan's face for any sign of discomfort. "Would you maybe want to grab dinner sometime? Just the two of us?" Ethan blinked, caught off guard by the invitation. Dinner? With Alex Sterling? The idea seemed absurd yet thrilling at the same time. "Are you sure?" he asked cautiously. "I mean, isn't that kind of risky? For you, I mean." Alex shook his head firmly. "I don't care about risks. I care about spending time with someone who makes me feel real. Someone like you." Ethan's heart raced. Part of him wanted to say yes immediately, to embrace the possibility of something more. But another part, the practical, cautious side, warned him to tread carefully. "Let me think about it," he said finally. "I need to consider Liam, too. He comes first." Alex nodded, understanding Ethan's priorities. "Of course, take your time. I just wanted to be honest about how I feel." That night, as Ethan tucked Liam into bed, his mind raced with thoughts of Alex. Could they really pursue something beyond friendship? Was it fair to either of them, given their vastly different lives? And most importantly, would Liam be okay with it? Despite his reservations, Ethan couldn't deny the spark between them. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to entertain the idea of love, not just for Liam, but for himself as well. Whatever happened next, he knew one thing for certain. Alex Sterling had already changed his life in ways he never imagined possible. The decision to accept Alex's invitation weighed heavily on Ethan's mind in the days that followed. It wasn't just about him anymore. Liam was at the center of every choice he made. Being a single father meant putting his son's needs above his own desires, and Ethan couldn't ignore the potential complications that might arise from pursuing something with Alex. Still, the thought of saying yes lingered tantalizingly in the back of his mind. Could two people from such different worlds really find happiness together? Ethan finally decided to talk to Mrs. Klein about it. She had been a steady presence in their lives since Sarah's passing, offering wisdom and support whenever they needed it. Over cups of tea one afternoon, Ethan confided in her, sharing his conflicted feelings about Alex. To his surprise, Mrs. Klein listened intently before giving him a gentle smile. "Ethan," she said, "you've spent so long taking care of everyone else, Liam, your job, this house, but when was the last time you let someone take care of you?" If this man makes you happy, don't push him away because of fear or doubt. Life is too short for what-ifs. Her words struck a chord deep within Ethan. He realized he'd been so focused on survival that he hadn't allowed himself to dream of anything more. That evening, after tucking Liam into bed, Ethan sent Alex a text. "I'd love to have dinner with you." Alex's response came almost instantly. "Great. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 7. The next night, Ethan stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his shirt collar nervously. He hadn't dressed up like this in years. Not since Sarah. The idea of going out on what could only be described as a date felt surreal. Liam, ever perceptive, noticed his dad's unease. "Are you going somewhere fun, Daddy?" he asked, tilting his head curiously. "I'm having dinner with Mr. Sterling," Ethan replied, trying to sound casual. "Just as friends." Liam grinned. "He's nice. You should go." Ethan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Thanks, buddy. Now get some sleep, okay?" When Alex arrived, Ethan felt a flutter of nerves as he opened the door. Alex looked effortlessly handsome in a dark sweater and jeans, a far cry from the suits he wore at work. His smile softened the tension immediately. "You look great," Alex said warmly, holding out a bouquet of flowers. "These are for you." Ethan blinked in surprise. "Flowers? For me? For you?" Alex confirmed, his voice steady but tinged with nervousness. "I wanted tonight to feel special." It did. From the moment they stepped into Alex's car, a sleek black sedan that smelled faintly of leather, they both knew this was uncharted territory. Dinner took them to a cozy Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet part of town. The ambiance was intimate, the kind of place where soft music played in the background and candles flickered on each table. As they sat across from each other, sipping wine and sharing stories, Ethan found himself relaxing. For the first time, they weren't confined by the roles of CEO and janitor. They were simply two people getting to know each other. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on everything from childhood memories to dreams for the future. Alex spoke candidly about his struggles with loneliness and the pressure of living up to expectations. Ethan shared his fears of failing Liam and the guilt he carried over not being able to give him a normal life. By the end of the meal, they felt closer than ever, the walls between them crumbling piece by piece. But reality has a way of intruding even on the most magical moments. As they left the restaurant, paparazzi swarmed them, cameras flashing wildly. Someone had tipped off the press, and suddenly, photos of Alex Sterling walking hand in hand with a janitor were splashed across social media. The headlines were merciless. "CEO dates janitor. Charity case or scandal?" "Sterling tech boss mixes business with pleasure." The comment sections erupted with speculation and judgment. Back at Sterling Tech, rumors spread like wildfire. Employees whispered behind closed doors, some mocking Ethan for allegedly using Alex for money, others criticizing Alex for tarnishing the company's image. Even the board members began questioning Alex's judgment, urging him to distance himself from the situation before it affected stock prices. For Ethan, the backlash hit hard. He'd always known there would be challenges, but he hadn't anticipated the sheer volume of negativity directed at him, and indirectly at Liam. One morning, as he dropped Liam off at school, another parent shot him a disapproving glare. Later that day, a coworker muttered under her breath, "Guess cleaning toilets pays better than we thought." Ethan tried to brush it off, focusing instead on his work and spending quality time with Liam. But the weight of the scrutiny gnawed at him. Was he being selfish by pursuing something with Alex? Was he risking Liam's well-being for his own happiness? Alex, meanwhile, faced immense pressure from all sides. Shareholders demanded explanations, while executives hinted at potential consequences if the scandal continued. Yet despite the chaos, Alex refused to back down. He called an emergency meeting with the board, his expression steely and resolute. "This company is my legacy," he began, his voice cutting through the murmurs, "and I built it from nothing. But let me make one thing clear. My personal life is none of your concern. Who I choose to spend my time with does not affect how I run this business. If anyone disagrees, they're welcome to find employment elsewhere. His declaration stunned the room into silence. No one dared challenge him further. Outside the boardroom, employees buzzed with disbelief. Never had they seen Alex stand up so fiercely for something, or someone. Still, the public scrutiny didn't stop. Tabloids dug deeper, dredging up old details about Ethan's life and painting him as a gold digger. The stress became overwhelming, and Ethan began to question whether continuing the relationship was worth it. One evening, as they sat together, in Alex's penthouse apartment overlooking the city, Ethan voiced his doubts. "Maybe we should stop seeing each other," he said quietly, staring at his hands. "All this attention, it's hurting Liam, and I can't let that happen." Alex reached out, placing a firm hand over Ethan's. "No, we're not giving up. I won't let them win. You deserve happiness, Ethan, and so does Liam. Together, we'll figure this out." Ethan hesitated, torn between logic and emotion. But then he thought of Liam, who had innocently asked earlier that week, "Why does Mr. Sterling make you smile, Daddy?" The answer was simple. Alex made him feel seen, valued, and loved, and maybe, just maybe, love was worth fighting for. With renewed determination, they decided to face the storm together. Alex hired a PR team to manage the fallout, ensuring that false narratives were debunked and that Ethan's dignity remained intact. Meanwhile, Ethan leaned on Mrs. Klein and a few trusted friends for support, reminding himself why he'd fallen for Alex in the first place. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Public opinion shifted as interviews surfaced, highlighting Ethan's character and dedication as a father. Employees at Sterling Tech started noticing how Alex seemed happier, more approachable, and genuinely invested in making the workplace better for everyone. Love, it seemed, had a way of breaking down barriers, even those built by prejudice and fear. As winter gave way to spring, Ethan and Alex grew stronger, their bond unshakable. They learned to navigate the challenges side by side, proving that love knows no boundaries, not wealth, not titles, and certainly not fear. Whatever lay ahead, they were ready to face it together. As spring blossomed, Ethan and Alex found themselves navigating a new chapter in their lives, one filled with challenges, growth, and the unwavering belief that love could overcome anything. The public scrutiny hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had softened over time as people began to see beyond the headlines. What once seemed like an improbable pairing now appeared to be something genuine, even inspiring. Alex made it his mission to ensure Ethan never doubted his worth again. He encouraged Ethan to pursue opportunities that aligned with his passions and skills, helping him rediscover dreams he'd long since shelved. One evening, while they sat together on Alex's balcony watching the sunset, Alex broached the subject of education. "You've always talked about wanting to finish your degree," Alex said gently. "Why don't you? I can help with tuition if money is holding you back." Ethan hesitated, shaking his head. "I appreciate it, Alex, but I don't want you feeling like you have to take care of me financially." "It's not charity," Alex insisted. "It's support, for both you and Liam. You deserve this chance, Ethan. Think about what it could mean for your future." After much deliberation and a heartfelt conversation with Liam, who enthusiastically cheered at the idea of his dad going back to school, Ethan decided to enroll in an engineering program at a local university. With Alex's encouragement and flexible work arrangements from Sterling Tech, he managed to balance classes, parenting, and part-time janitorial duties. It wasn't easy, but every late-night study session brought him closer to achieving a dream he'd thought lost forever. Meanwhile, Alex underwent a transformation of his own. Inspired by Ethan's resilience and dedication, he began reevaluating how he ran Sterling Tech. For years, the company had been driven solely by profit margins and efficiency metrics. But under Alex's renewed leadership, it became a place where employees felt valued and supported. He introduced family-friendly policies such as extended parental leave and subsidized childcare, ensuring that parents like Ethan didn't have to choose between career and family. He also launched initiatives aimed at promoting diversity and inclusivity within the workplace. Employees noticed the change immediately. Meetings became collaborative rather than combative, and morale soared as workers realized their voices mattered. Even critics who had initially dismissed Alex's relationship with Ethan came around, acknowledging the positive impact it had on the company culture. One day, during a company-wide town hall meeting, Alex stood before hundreds of employees and shared a deeply personal story, the journey he'd taken alongside Ethan. "When I met Ethan," he said, his voice steady but emotional, "I saw someone who worked harder than anyone I knew, not for himself, but for his son. He reminded me of the values I'd forgotten: compassion, humility, and the importance of connection. Those lessons have shaped everything we're doing here today." The room erupted into applause, and Ethan, sitting quietly in the back row, felt tears prick his eyes. He'd never imagined that his presence in Alex's life could spark such meaningful change. Time passed, and milestones marked their growing bond. On Liam's 8th birthday, Alex surprised father and son with tickets to a dinosaur exhibit at the City Museum, a nod to Liam's lifelong fascination with prehistoric creatures. As they wandered through life-sized replicas of T-Rex skeletons and fossil displays, Ethan watched Alex interact with Liam, marveling at how natural it felt. There were moments when it was hard to remember that Alex hadn't been part of their lives all along. Liam, too, grew fond of Alex, often referring to him as the cool guy who hangs out with us. Though neither Ethan nor Alex pushed for formal titles, Liam occasionally called Alex Dad in moments of excitement or affection. Each time it happened, Ethan's heart swelled with gratitude. For Alex's patience, for Liam's acceptance, and for the family they were slowly building together. Their relationship faced its final test when Sterling Tech announced plans to expand internationally, requiring Alex to travel frequently for several months. The prospect of being apart weighed heavily on both men, but they approached it with open communication and trust. During one of Alex's trips to Europe, he sent Ethan a video message showing off the Eiffel Tower, promising, "Next time, you and Liam are coming with me." True to his word, Alex arranged for Ethan and Liam to join him on subsequent trips. Together, they explored Paris, Rome, and Barcelona, creating memories that would last a lifetime. For Ethan, these adventures symbolized more than just vacations. They represented freedom, the kind he hadn't experienced since before Sarah's passing. Years later, as Ethan walked across the stage to accept his diploma, surrounded by cheering classmates and proud professors, he locked eyes with Alex and Liam in the audience. Tears streamed down his face as he realized how far they'd come, from lonely nights mopping office floors to standing side by side as equals. His academic achievement wasn't just a personal victory, it was proof that love and determination could rewrite even the most daunting narratives. That summer, Alex proposed to Ethan during a quiet picnic by the lake. Kneeling in the grass, he held out a simple gold band and asked, "Will you spend the rest of your life with me?" Ethan laughed through happy tears, pulling Liam close. "Only if Liam says yes, too." "Of course," Liam shouted, throwing his arms around them both. Their wedding, held in the same park where they'd spent countless evenings playing catch and flying kites, was a celebration of love in all its forms. Friends, colleagues, and neighbors gathered to witness two souls unite, not despite their differences, but because of them. Mrs. Klein served as an honorary grandmother, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief as she watched Liam proudly carry the rings down the aisle. In the years that followed, Ethan transitioned from janitor to junior engineer at Sterling Tech, eventually rising to lead innovative projects that earned him widespread recognition. Alex continued to thrive as CEO, but his greatest success remained the family he'd built with Ethan and Liam. Together, they proved that no obstacle, whether societal expectations, financial disparity, or personal doubts, could stand in the way of true love. And so, amidst laughter, shared dreams, and the occasional argument over whose turn it was to clean the kitchen, Ethan and Alex built a life rooted in authenticity and devotion. They taught each other that happiness isn't defined by wealth or status, but by the connections we nurture and the courage to embrace love in its purest form. As they stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the world they'd reshaped one small act of kindness at a time, Ethan whispered, "We did it." "Yes," Alex replied, smiling softly. Together we always will.